I am Nick Mills. I'm Digital Experience Director at Principles. My background is in kind of all digital strategy. So I've worked and overseen teams in digital PR, SEO, social, performance marketing, etc. And my kind of particular expertise come into kind of overarching digital strategy, which is why both of these have Clickless search and social search are of particular interest to me, because it affects every client I work with. So I'm going to start off with a rather daunting quote from Rand Fishkin, who is co-founder of Moz. So he says that AI is going to take your opportunity to get search traffic. It's done that for the last 5 years, and it's going to keep doing that. So I know we're all here for the talk about losing traffic, but just out of interest, who has, show of hands, seen a dip in traffic in sort of the last year, or maybe beyond that? Not a single person. There we go. So thinking about Rand's quote, there has to be hope. There's all this talk of, SEO is dead and AI is going to take over everything that we do. So there has to be hope, right? So I went back to Rand for insight on this, and he says traffic is a vanity metric. Growing it is unlikely to help a business compared to the many other marketing things you can do. And that's where his Whiteboard Friday ends. And I think this is a kind of narrative that I'm seeing a lot. Lots of people kind of bemoaning the end of SEO as we know it and search as we know it, but with very few kind of insight or, guidance on what to do next. So hopefully that's what I'm going to start to unpick today. So we're going to cover what has changed in search behaviour, and I'm going to break that down into clickless search and social search, and then I'm going to give some kind of top-line tactics that you can take away and, go back to your teams and bosses with. I'm also going to give some kind of top tips on having the traffic conversation if you have anyone internal or clients if you're agency side who maybe doesn't quite get it and is still kind of focused on that overall traffic being the be-all and end-all. So many of us are asking this question, why are we losing traffic? But it's really more about attention shifts, which means we kind of need to reframe that question. So it's more about where is that attention going? And that's not a question that has a quick, simple answer. Anyone working in SEO who has been asked the question, how do we rank number one, will kind of get this feeling. There isn't one simple answer. But to answer it, we need to look closely at the digital ecosystem and how your customer journey has changed through that ecosystem. So 10 years ago, as a digital strategist, a very kind of simplified version of a user journey for an example client might have looked something like this. We have several different touch points, but it's fairly manageable, and we know that the website and therefore Google kind of play a really key role in the journey. Nowadays, it looks a little bit more like that. I'm not going to go through all of that, but you can see straight away all those additional channels and touch points that have come into play. And if, as marketers, we're still focusing solely on these, we're missing a hell of a lot of opportunity. So the two big changes in search, as you know from the title of this talk, that have kind of made it more important than ever to kind of zoom out and think about that broader user journey, are clickless search and social search. So I'm going to start with clickless search. So for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it is literally search results that answer the question without sending traffic to your website. That includes multiple different things. And going back 10 years, people also asked, featured snippets came in, and it was like, oh my God, this is going to change search as we know it, but we've all survived, right? It also includes things like local packs and image packs and all of that kind of stuff. But the two biggest things that have kind of interrupted the search journey in recent years is generative AI and AI overviews within search. So those are the two that we're going to focus on today. By generative AI, I mean people using tools like ChatGPT and Perplexity and Gemini to do their search kind of independent of Google. So what does clickless search actually mean for brands? So I've got three kind of quick points to bear in mind here. So AI doesn't just surface those static answers, they can satisfy complex and multi-layered questions. So it kind of negates the need for people to go to your website, read your blog, and then ask a follow-up search question, read another blog, etc. So what that means for brands is you potentially will lose informational traffic, and there's less opportunity for that early funnel visibility on Google. And it's really important to bear that in mind, on Google. It hasn't disappeared altogether. It's just that things have shifted. So search journeys, as we saw from that very explosive diagram earlier, search journeys are now fragmented across platforms. So again, traffic can be bypassing your site in favour of those other platforms. Your website is not necessarily going to be all and end all for the user. It's not necessarily that they're going to, make their decisions by a Google search, looking at your website, and here we go. So the last thing I wanted to mention is that platforms have been optimizing for a while for retention, not referral. So the goal for platforms is no longer click-throughs to your website. And for the user as well, that's no longer their goal. We're seeing this particularly in lead gen clients with their social ads. We did a test with a car finance automotive client where one ad drove to the website to fill out the form, one ad had a lead form within TikTok itself, and the lead form within TikTok itself massively outperforms sending people to the website. So people want to stay where they are. They don't want to kind of, be referred, basically. So if you've taken anything so far, hopefully it's that you're not alone. But I wanted to just give a little bit of context to that. So this chart shows the kind of frequency of AI overviews across industries, and this is based on about 8,000 keywords. You can see that AI overviews are taking circa real estate in pretty much every industry, but there are some that massively are missing out. So health, safety, and then you get down to SEO and technology and finance. But you'll see e-commerce up here is largely unaffected. So from this, you might start to think, well, why is that then? Is it that AI overviews are kind of relevant for certain types of queries? And yes. So if we look at intent, informational search intent is by far the most common kind of category of search that has AI overviews in the search. Commercial is, around 4% there of commercial searches have an AI overview. So we're not kind of losing real estate in the places that matter the most, but it does mean that your kind of top of funnel informational stuff, you may be losing some visibility there, which is part of why we could be losing traffic. So what this means in practicality then is, although overall traffic has been like, the benchmark for such a long time, Rand's kind of right. I wouldn't call it a vanity metric, but it's misleading. You could look at your overall traffic dipping and think, oh, shit, like we're in dire straits. But actually, if you look at other metrics, it may not be having as big an impact as you think. And if it is, that's where we get into tactics. So the first thing I want you to think about is, can you start to broaden and narrow your metrics? And what I mean by that is think about broader entry points. So yes, traffic will still be in there, but search and social impressions, think about that fragmented journey. SERPs are not the only place where you need visibility. Social, as we're going to see, comes into it a lot more these days. Can you also look at AI citations? Whether that's driving traffic to your site or not, it's still visibility. It's still an important metric to track. And share of search, as I said, we're not alone. There's no one brand that this is impacting and everyone else is doing fine. So have a look at like the proportion of visibility compared to your competitors. And then when I say narrower, I mean narrower landing points. So overall traffic is great, but if you're losing informational traffic, but your product and landing pages are still getting the same levels of traffic, then we can put down the fire hose and take a little bit more time to kind of develop our strategy. And obviously your sign-ups and purchases and your kind of key conversions, they should always be the main focus. If you're starting to see dips there, then yes, fine, we need to work backwards and take maybe pick that fire hose up. But I think the reality for a lot of brands is they see that overall traffic dipping and think, oh my God, but when you dig into the metrics that matter to them, it's not as dire as it first appears, and there are kind of things that you can do at that point. So that's it for Clickless search for now. I'm going to go through social search and then we'll move into some tactics. So social search, again, exactly as the name suggests, it's search that happens on social platforms where users are discovering answers, ideas, or products. Now, Social search it's not a brand new thing. Pinterest has been a search engine for, since it began. YouTube has as well, if we consider that a social platform. But it has kind of exploded in the past 5 years, largely thanks to TikTok and then, Instagram trying to play catch up. But overall, 25% of people say that they use social platforms as their primary search tool. That's a huge amount. That's a huge amount of people that are no longer turning straight to Google. And if particular demographics are important to you, so that's 46% for Gen Z and 35% for millennials. A quarter of TikTok users head straight to the search bar within 10 seconds of opening the app, meaning they're going there to search, not necessarily for entertainment. And Pinterest users say that the number one reason they use Pinterest is to search for information about products and brands. So huge commercial intent on Pinterest. So what does social search mean for brands? 3 key points to bear in mind. So this shift in social search has meant that the expectation is that peer-led and low production, those lo-fi kind of content is now the hallmark of trust. And what that means for brands is that ads that look like ads are now seen as intrusive and non-native and ultimately untrustworthy and can risk that negative brand sentiment. So that's something to bear in mind, not only in your content, but in your ads as well. It's really tempting to go for high production value, potentially graphic-based ads like we would for, old school meta ads, but more and more that is becoming seen as untrustworthy. So social search also blends discovery and entertainment and education in one kind of experience. I was chatting to someone a few weeks ago who was clearly not on TikTok, and he was saying yeah, it's just dance routines and stuff, isn't it? And I was like, mate, it hasn't been that for 5 years. People go to TikTok for advice and information on finance, on stocks and shares, on health, on all kinds of serious subjects. It is just as much an education platform as it is an entertainment platform now. And you can see that in the ads that TikTok ran. I think it was during COVID, all about kind of education. So what this means for brands is that because that search intent is so varied, the content needs to be as well. And that's not saying drop the entertaining content, but it's saying there are other opportunities. You need to kind of diversify your content in social to appear in search. It's perfectly acceptable for, a serious, less sexy brand to jump onto TikTok and build a really strong following. That is possible, and we've seen it happen with many clients. It's no longer just a dance platform. Social search also means, and this is across all kind of social search platforms, it means that discovery and purchase are collapsing into the same moment. So if you're not visible where that inspiration strikes, you could miss a conversion if that is something that your business is set up to do, whether that's a purchase from TikTok shop, Instagram shop, your kind of connected EPOS on Pinterest, or whether it is, lead form and lead generation. So obviously we kind of talked a lot about TikTok there, but I just wanted to highlight that there's quite a breadth when it comes to social search platforms that lead the way. So yes, TikTok, but also Instagram in the last few years, they've started to kind of make platform updates to try and play catch up, basically. TikTok was built to be a search engine, Instagram was not, and it's kind of starting to play catch up. So now is the time to basically start optimizing for that and get ahead of the game. YouTube shorts and YouTube videos, obviously very different content types, but both, a search for one thing will surface both of those. So if you can appear in either, whichever fits your business best, that's a great opportunity. Pinterest, an oldie but a goodie, and Reddit as well, particularly for kind of high consideration purchases. Reddit is a wealth of really engaged, really passionate people who share a lot of kind of product knowledge and personal experience. So if that's something that could be relevant for your business, it's definitely worth considering. And then we'll get into tactics. So at kind of top level, obviously, we could stand here and talk for hours about the various different things we can do, but I've wanted to give as many tactics as possible. But if anyone's got any kind of questions, feel free to grab me afterwards or reach out on LinkedIn. I wanted to start off with the kind of most obvious and most difficult question. For years it was, how do we rank number one? And now it's, how do we get AI to cite us? And it's not a simple answer, but the answer is kind of the same for both. It's content best practices. So AI, just like Google, doesn't like prioritize these random blogs that are targeting all the keywords, this scattergun approach. Churning out 20, 30 blogs in a month is not going to give you any better chance of being cited by AI, just like it didn't give you necessarily a better chance of being, you know, in the top 3 on Google. What it does prioritize is structured content that is intent driven and genuinely useful. So in practical terms, I would say prioritize semantic relevance. So bear in mind AI searches, and this is happening within Google itself now as well, tend to be more conversational. There tend to be a lot more variations to your keywords. So think about your priority keywords as your bullseye, but go broader. Think about the semantic relevance around them. It prioritizes clarity. So it's all well and good using AI to write a load of blogs on, you know, XYZ topic, but if you don't kind of guide that content, what you'll end up with is a load of blogs and guides that don't really know who the audience is. I saw this with a client recently. They're a really technical aviation recruitment business, and their blogs were reading like they were written for Joe Public, not engineers. So clarity in what you're saying and the answers that you're giving and all of that stuff, but also be clear on who your audience is. You don't need to capture anyone and everyone. Very few businesses actually need that, and AI can tell. And scrapable formats. So just like Google, AI does love kind of tables, bullet points, headers, information that's easily scrapable. It can obviously read images, but I think, you know, there's no point writing one version of a guide for AI and one for Google, so stick with those scrapable formats. So as I've said here, like that content best practice has been kind of the foundation of SEO for a long time, and it's really just about elevating that with AI in mind. That doesn't necessarily mean that if you do all of those things, you will 100% be one of those 3 sources that AI cites, but it gives you the best chance. And then moving a bit broader than that. Now, having your kind of product specifications in a structured data markup, if you are an e-commerce business, is super. It's like almost like a quick win, if you like. So I'll give an example. So I was looking for some Clickless huggy earrings. I wanted them to be gold plated, and they had to be 7mm internal diameter, because that's what fits where my piercings are. And I Googled those 4 things, you know, in one search, and I kept getting all of these pages that were optimized for gold-plated Clickless huggy earrings or 7mm earrings, but they were silver, and couldn't find the exact product I was looking for. I put those 4 requirements into ChatGPT, and immediately it gave me 5 products that matched exactly all 4 kind of things I was looking for. But it does that not just by kind of checking out the words that you've written on your product page, but looking at your structured data. So if you can put any product specifications in there, it gives you that best chance to be kind of scrapable and citable. And then for businesses that don't kind of run on a e-commerce basis, that rely on that key conversion of request a quote or get in touch or that kind of thing, I wanted to give another example here. So imagine you're thinking about getting a loft conversion, and you're trying to kind of figure out the details without immediately going and getting someone around to give you a quote, because you're just not quite there yet. So you give ChatGPT your floor plan, the dimensions, and ask, you know, is this possible? And then you move along in that journey back and forth, and you find, okay, yeah, it is possible. And ChatGPT gives suggestions on where the staircase could go and where the skylights could go. And do you need a dormer window? Are there any planning permission restrictions there? So you working your way down this journey quite significantly with one tool, and then inevitably the cost question is asked. You ask ChatGPT, how much is something like this going to cost? What AI will do at that point is cite individual businesses that have price ranges on their website, and that will be the first time you come into contact with brands that could provide the service you're looking for. And if you don't have price ranges on your website, you won't be one of those brands that's cited. That's not to say you need to try and give like exact estimates for things, you know, if that's not possible. But a starting from or a price range is really, really important, because that could be literally the first point of visibility you get with that person. Yeah. And then some social search tactics. So obviously social is and needs to continue to be a very creative kind of discipline. But more and more, we're going to see like the necessity of bringing in a little bit of SEO thinking into social strategy. So my recommendation is to start to look at putting together proper keyword strategies for your social. Gather platform-specific volume. So Google search volume is not necessarily going to translate to YouTube, Pinterest, etc. There are tools out there that will give you platform-specific volume data. Sense check these for intent. Make sure that what you're going after doesn't mean something slightly different on social, because that can happen. And then back the biggest bets. And what I mean by that is bake those topics into your content ideation, any trends that you're kind of keeping an eye out for and jumping on, and then literally optimize them into your captions, thumbnails, hashtags, and geotags if that's relevant for you. I want to stress that this should not become your complete social strategy. It's a thread to weave into what you're already doing and what is already working for you. And then I wanted to talk about shoppable socials, both for e-commerce and kind of lead gen type businesses. So any e-commerce brands that are not already selling through TikTok Shop, shoppable Instagram posts, and Pinterest seriously need to consider it. TikTok Shop is not kind of for unbranded tat as it maybe was in the beginning. Big brands are coming in. And as I said earlier about those lead gen forms, if you're a lead gen type business, running ads with that lead form within the ad can capture the opportunity without losing people, because they have to then also hear there, through to your website, etc. So think about ways that you can actually facilitate the end point of the journey within social platforms. And that will look different for lots of different businesses, but it's something to think about. And then just 3 kind of final universal essentials, just kind of recapping what I said earlier. Now is the time to start evolving your metrics. Broader kind of visibility is probably something that is going to overtake the conversation of traffic. And again, as I said earlier, focusing on the metrics that matter to your business. So moving from traffic to visibility, and then getting down into the granular detail of conversions and what matters. Hopefully what you'll have seen by these kind of 2 key changes in search behaviour is that SEO and social teams are going to need to work together. And that's a big opportunity, because tends to be kind of left-brain people, right-brain people, etc. So there's huge opportunity there. But I would also say consider whether your SEO teams and your social teams can report together as well, because for a very long time they've been kind of independent metrics, but actually they're all working towards this broader brand visibility. So why not work together and report together? And then lastly, I guess thinking back to the beginning and that very messy, complicated, but full of opportunity user journey, now more than ever, it's very important to develop and work to an overarching digital strategy. Again, teams working in silos just isn't going to work for this kind of new era of search. And then moving on to the conversation. So if anyone is kind of internally still banging their head against a brick wall with any teammates that feel like traffic is the be-all and end-all. I've had many conversations with clients over the past few years about this, and these are basically my top tips. Number 1 seems really simple, but stay calm and not defensive. Any drops in traffic does not mean a failure in your strategy or what your team is doing. It just means change, and we as individual marketers are not responsible for that change. We just have to adapt and evolve with it. Yeah. Number 2, reframe the question, kind of as I did at the beginning. So it's about visibility and outcomes, not just raw clicks. And that might be a point you have to make a few times with internal teams, but keep the consistency going and stick with that message. And point to business outcomes. As I say, if overall traffic is dropping, but product page traffic is not, and conversions are not, start at that point in the conversation. Show the why, so explain these shifts. You can feel free to use my presentation when it's sent round and any other resources you can see out there. But it's very easy, I think, when you're brand side and even sometimes when you're agency side, to feel like this is just happening to you and to feel like you're defending your corner. But actually, this is happening across the board. So have those conversations internally about how kind of widespread it is. And lastly, lead with solutions. Outline how you're going to adapt that strategy. Hopefully some of the tactics I've talked about today will help with that. But your businesses dig deep, get creative, get experimental. Now is not the time to go, shit, things have changed and that's it, it's over. Now is the time to say, do you know what, let's try something new. We've had many points like that in digital marketing over the past 10, 15 years, and this is just another one of them. So roll with the punches, I guess, is what I'm saying.